Ba-da-ba-bum, bum. Ba. The Last of Us. An entirely predictable disaster. Okay. What can we expect of this? We can expect big things. I'll tell you that much. Let's go.
Last of Us Season 2 stumbles and flops to its conclusion like a fat guy trying to pole vault in the middle of a storm of fan backlash, cratering audience.
I'm gonna be a dad! You who have seen the show, you know.
Scores and viewing figures that HBO conveniently doesn't talk about anymore. In short, this season has been nothing short of a complete...
I think they actually did this as well. They changed, you know, the big posters to what is his name, Joel, instead of Ellie. And if you have seen, can I spoil this one? I guess I can, because the game has been out for however long. You know, he dies pretty quick in the second season. That was the big mistake. You know, the only time Hollywood were supposed to, you know, because otherwise, when they are supposed to follow the story, they don't follow the story for shit. But now, when everybody doesn't want them to follow that part, you know, of the story, they follow it, you know, like this. Not so smart, Hollywood, or whoever, HBO or whatever who does this show.
Total disaster. A boring, bleak, depressing, badly written...
Controversial topic. Not controversial, but I actually liked the first season. And I haven't played the games, you know, fully. I played the first one a little bit, not the entire story, so I didn't know really what was supposed to happen. But I liked the first season, that was good. But the second season, you know, it fell... It had its moments, surely, but it fell on its knees pretty quick, and it was, you know, the acting on some people, I'm not gonna say who, or should I, is not up to par for the budget and for the hype of this movie, or series, I mean.
Slog of a show that actually strained the very limits of my endurance just to get to the ends. And I've watched The Acolyte.
We were on the brink of
I haven't watched The Acolyte though, but same. I feel you, Mr. Drinker, because I was like after Joel died, basically, I was like, what's the point, you know? But I sat through it. It wasn't fun, but I did it, and I didn't have to do that with the first season. Then I was just binge watching, so. Yeah, I think they did something wrong there.
And the thing that's so sad about this whole thing is that this disaster was entirely predictable. In fact, I predicted it months before the season even started in this video right here. But man, even I couldn't have imagined just how bad it was going to be, apart from a couple of half-decent
yeah, this was great. But I have some problem with these scenes as well, because they have like a big boy infected. One big boy infected that breaks the wall, you know. Shouldn't there be at least a couple of them? Because it's, I don't know how many infected, and they rush in, and it's like somehow Palpatine returns. It's the same feeling when, you know, they just cut it. They have invaded the whole city, and then they just cut, and then everybody's dead. You know, every zombie is dead. I don't know what to feel about that.
Where all that HBO money was on full display, and a performance from Pedro Pascal, who was clearly doing his best to carry the entire show on his back.
Yeah, I think Pedro is the most stable guy on the show. You know, I can't really. As I said, I don't really know the games because I haven't played them, just a little bit, not the whole story. But you know, it's very solid. His performance, really good.
2 has been absolute trash from start to finish. Boring when it should have been compelling, laughable when it should have been poignant, frustrating when it should have been exciting, preachy, self-indulgent and pretentious. It's everything the game was, but dialed up to 11.
And, you know, Ellie has 2 expressions. She's annoyed or a schoolgirl happy, you know. What do you call it? She's defiant. Do you call that in English? That's her whole character in this.
And now that it's finally over and we've had the full Season 2 experience, I think now's as good a time as any to reflect on where exactly The Last of Us went wrong. So grab your potato masher and let's explore the top 5 reasons this show went off the rails. Problem number 1.
Joel.
It's no secret.
Joel or Joel. I can't pronounce that, but I guess this guy can. I can't.
That killing off Joel in the first few hours of the game has gone down in history as one of the worst narrative decisions that anyone's ever made.
Yeah, I actually knew that from the start because, you know, it's inevitable. If you have been on the internet and you play games, it's inevitable not to know this.
Ever.
And the backlash that it got as well. And the whole second game got a lot of backlash because, you know, I guess a little bit of the message. You know, if you catch my drift.
The worst narrative. Killing off Joel in the first few hours of the game has gone down in history as one of the worst narrative decisions that anyone's ever made, ever.
Super loud as well.
Well, I said one of the worst.
Yeah.
And you'd think that 5
Yeah, that's a little bit dodgy, you know, that is it The Last Jedi or something? I can't remember which of the movies it is, but the Disney trilogy is, I'm talking Star Wars now, is, the first movie is okay in some parts, but then it just goes downhill. I don't know why they do it, how they can't just keep to the source material. It's always like that, they don't keep to the source material, but in this case, they do. And nobody wants it. They thought they were like, yeah, finally we're gonna keep to the source material. And everybody was like, you stupid. Where is it? You stupid.
English, motherfucker, do you speak it?
That word.
Years of fan backlash, alternative suggestions, and endless video essays would have convinced Neil Druckmann to do something a bit different this time around.
No.
But nope, there it is, almost beat for beat exactly like in the game. At the same
Except that Abby isn't jacked like shit. She isn't on steroids in the movies. She should be. They should have taken Kamala Harris, if you know her. They should have taken her to play the role. That would actually be good because that's the same amount of muscle. That should be great.
exact point in the narrative. And as it turns out, it was just as unpopular now as it was 5 years ago. Not only did killing off the protagonist of the first season in such a pointless, brutal manner leave a sour taste in people's mouths.
It would have been great if they did it, you know, maybe, but somehow Joel returned, maybe in season 3, who knows. But it would have been great if they did it and then he recovered, you know, maybe like in The Revenant with Leonardo DiCaprio. That would have been a plot twist, and they still would have kept the source material, but they have done something different, you know. That would have been great, in my opinion.
But it also left a gaping hole in the show that no other character could possibly fill. The relationship between Joel and Ellie was the beating heart of both the game and the show, and without it, The Last of Us lost that vital element that kept people engaged. It's humanity. And there's really no getting around this. Pedro Pascal was by far the best thing about The Last of Us.
Ha! Gay!
Yeah, he's
Classic
arguably
meme.
overhyped and overexposed as an actor, and I'm still not convinced he was the best man for the job. But one thing I can't deny is that the guy can fucking act.
But I don't know which guy they should have taken elsewhere, because he's pretty like the guy in the games as well, you know, to the looks and everything. So I don't know which guy they should have cast, and I don't think they could have gotten, you know, a huge name anyway because it's a series. But I think big actors has changed their mind on that one, because before they had big movies, and then when they started to fall off, they did series. But now I think they can do series and still do big movies, because series can be as much or more appreciated than the movies. It's like games. Like before, it was harder to, I guess, it because the gaming industry was smaller before, and now it's huge. So it's easier to find actors and stuff now than it was back in the day, I guess, because back in the day it was a little bit smaller team. I think. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm probably wrong.
Pascal brought some much-needed authority, gravitas and believability to the show, and with him out of the picture, it was up to problem number 2 to carry this show. Which brings me neatly along to problem number 2. Ellie. There are certain unavoidable truths that have to be reconciled in life, dear viewer. 1. True happiness is something that you only recognise once it's gone. 2. Aerith is objectively the better girlfriend for Cloud in Final Fantasy VII. And 3. Bella Ramsey was the wrong fucking choice to play Ellie. Now,
yeah, she has gotten a lot of hate because of her looks. Just because of her looks. But, you know, I'm gonna not talk about that. I'm gonna talk about her acting skills. And I don't know how old this lady is, but if she's a kid, I guess she's not a kid, but the acting is, if you compare her to Pascal, it's, unfortunately, it's day and night, while it should be, you know, comparable. She could get away with, you know, being a little bit worse, but now it's such a gap that it's, the dynamic and everything is, it's like, it's getting weird because one is great and one is not so great.
I'm not here.
And I think you get influenced when you see stuff online as well. When you hear someone praise someone, you maybe see them in a different light, and when you see someone not praise someone, you see them in that light that they pronounce. Or when they, yeah, you know, I think that's has something to do with it as well.
7. And 3. Bella Ramsey was the wrong fucking choice to play Ellie. Now, I'm not here to shit all over her appearance or hate on her as a person, because that's pretty unfair and mean-spirited. She's just an actor doing a job, and believe it or not, she actually comes across as pretty likeable and down-to-earth in interviews.
I haven't seen any interviews, but I trust this guy because he knows what he's talking about.
But the harsh reality is that not every actor can play every role. They have to physically embody the character they're playing, and if they can't do that, they at least have to capture the essence of that character's personality.
True.
Clearly, Ramsey doesn't look anything like Ellie, so the first option's right out the window, but she also doesn't have the acting range to embody Ellie either. Her performance ranges from so wooden you could build a log cabin out of it, to so over the top that it makes Nick Cage look like Anthony Hopkins.
True. Have you seen Nicolas Cage in Vampire's Kiss?
A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, Z!
I thought that was his first big role. It is not, I'll tell you that much, because I saw a documentary, you know, a biography of Nicolas Cage, and it was not that. But I agree a little bit, but I don't agree fully, because this is just for, you know, impact, because I think Nicolas Cage is more over the top than this actor. I don't know her name, but Ellie. I think he can be more over the top, but he can be it more in a good way than she has shown in the series, at least, in my opinion. Because it can be really fun when someone is that, you know. If you have seen Nicolas Cage movies, you know what I mean.
None of it feels believable. She's laughable when she's trying to be intimidating, obnoxious when she's trying to be likable, and weirdly disconnected when she's trying to be tender and vulnerable.
That was really weird after Joel died, you know, in the movies. She was like, she just it was like it never happened, or that it didn't mean anything to her, because she was happy she was happy because she was with the other girl when she was supposed to be a dad and everything. And then she was mad, you know, when she was trying to take down the killers. But it was like really weird dynamic there.
As I dislike the game, one thing I can't deny is that Ashley Johnson fucking crushes it as Ellie, and comparing some of their most iconic scenes, you can't help but notice the massive gulf of talent between her and Ramsey.
Yeah, if I played the game, I could let you know, but I haven't, so I can't compare to that. But if I can come in with fresh eyes, I probably agree as well, because I was thinking about it without playing the games as well. So I think it doesn't matter if you have played the game, it's an even worse experience, I guess.
It's a lethal combination that absolutely kills your investment in the character, and it doesn't help that she's been written as a completely different person from the game. Game Ellie was a broken woman for most of Part 2, completely consumed with revenge to the point where it takes a visible toll on her mind and body. Yeah, it was depressing, but it at least made sense, and it perfectly fit with the theme of revenge.
Yeah, because her dad died, so she should be a little bit more revengeful and a little bit more sad and a little bit more, you know, broken up than she was in the series.
Ultimately costing both parties everything. TV show Ellie is completely different though. You can practically feel the insecurities of the writers shining through, where they try so hard to make her tough and resilient, where she used to be open and trusting, and instead of being strong and determined, she just comes across as prickly, arrogant and aggressive.
Yeah. You know, when Joel pushed the old priest or whatever, the guy in the bar, and was like, I don't need your fucking help. That was I don't know about if I like that one.
With Dina has gone from teetering on the brink of collapse to some idyllic teen romance where they're cracking jokes, smiling, laughing and fucking like they don't have a care in the world. They never really...
Yeah, that scene, if we're gonna talk about that scene, that's super unrealistic. And you know why? Because they hadn't, they were just out and about killing zombies, killing people, whatever. They were so dirty. They could have whatever on their hands or on their body or wherever. So I think they would have turned zombie if this was realistic,
argue, smiling, laughing and fucking like they don't have a care in the world. They never really argue or fall out. They see everything pretty much the same way, and they're both so frustratingly agreeable that you have to wonder why Dina even exists.
Yeah.
It makes zero fucking sense, and it leaves you with this horrible nagging feeling that Joel's death really didn't make much of an impression on Ellie at all. Problem number 3, the pacing.
Yeah, the pacing is off. It's really off. I'm not gonna talk. I'm gonna listen to this.
The pacing of Last of Us Season 2.
Sometimes it's so boring. It doesn't happen. Nothing happens, and then it's like Walking Dead was for a while. For a while, Walking Dead was like, boom, everybody dies, and then it was a half a season. It didn't happen anything.
Is absolutely abysmal. In the games, this was less of a problem because the player was in control most of the time and cutscenes only came up occasionally to move the story along. Here though, that's literally all we've got, and it doesn't take you long to realise that there really isn't much of a story to tell here, and so a good chunk of the season is just time-wasting, busy work bullshit. How many times do we have to watch Ellie and Dina wandering through a forest or a deserted...
That was so weird, when there was just I'm sorry, I'm not gonna interrupt.
Bullshit.
I'm interrupting.
How many times do we have to watch Ellie and Dina wandering through a forest or a deserted city, swapping shit jokes and pointless banter that tells us nothing about them,
and that they are so rebellic, when they were, I don't know if you've seen this, but I guess you've seen it, when they're walking into the big facility, when they were hunting, they saw blood and then were going into town, they saw a dead bear and they were going into house. They were, no, don't go in there. We're like, oh, you can't stop us, la 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 la. I don't know if Ellie in the game was like this, but these two, it's like they are 15 years old. Maybe they are 15 years old. No, they are 19 or 20 in the series. So, yeah, a little bit older.
Moves the plot forward or builds up the worlds. How many tedious sex scenes did they have to cram in that feel completely out of step with two people in a tense survival situation?
But to be fair, it wasn't that bad because it was not so... Some scenes sometimes can be so long, when you sit home with your parents and that scene comes on. You know what I'm talking about? And you're like... Lovely weather today, guys. It was not like that because it was a little bit like that, but the scene was so short, thank God. So that's good. That's good, at least, if you ask me.
Where death can come at any moment. Yeah, there's nothing like being freezing wet and cold and surrounded by zombie fungus monsters to get you in the mood. There were whole episodes where nothing of any significance happens and I was bored out of my mind, and it all feels like such a waste of potential. It's the hallmark of self-indulgent hubris on the part of the showrunners, the belief that they're producing
and they brought back Joel. I guess they did it in the game as well, but they brought back Joel, and then you got even more. It was like, yeah, you get the backstory, but what's the point? You're not gonna see him again. So it's, I guess it's a point, but I hope you know what I mean.
Artistic perfection that the audience will just luxuriate in every second of it. It's a show about mushroom zombies, mate. Get a fucking grip. Problem 4, the writing. Everyone in this show is a fucking idiot. From Ellie and Dina just casually riding down the middle of a city street that could be crawling with enemy troops, to the wolf leaders who decide to occupy a hospital that's infected with airborne virus.
This one is diabolic.
Troops, to the wolf leaders who decide to occupy a hospital that's... Groups to
Crazy.
the wolf leaders who decide to
This
occupy a hospital
diabolic.
that's infected with airborne virus spores
How?
that can infect them at any moment, to Joel and his complete refusal to stand up for himself or
You need to listen. Yeah, I think it's called Mother by... Is it Dancing or something? Good song.
spores that could infect them at any moment, to Joel and his complete refusal to stand up for himself or explain his past actions, to Abby walking
Yeah, I don't
off
know if you do that on the game, because it feels like it's very like, no. When people ask about, the psychologist and Ellie, when they talk about it, it feels like he should just be able to talk about it, but I don't know.
to Abby walking off and leaving someone who's clearly going to come after her
Yeah.
for revenge later.
That's smart.
Nobody's actions make any fucking
That's peak writing right there.
sense. It's all just...
We need the plot. We need the plot to go to coincide. What do you say? To the red ring. We need the red ring to the plot. Let's keep Ellie alive so she can try to kill Abby later. Ba-ba-da-ba-ba-da-ba.
done in service of the plot. And that's not even counting the dialogue that's so cringe-inducing, it feels like even an AI would refuse to spit it out.
I'm gonna be a dad. Oh! Oi. Best scene. I like that scene. This best scene of all The Last of Us. If you disagree, get out of here. Get out of here.
Even sounded good in your heads. Problem 5.
The message.
Yeah, you probably knew this bit was coming, and for good fucking reason.
This is great. Because cancel culture is almost over. So you can actually express your feelings now a little bit more. So I like that, because if I were on the internet, 5, 6, 7 years ago, I think it would be over, because I'm not controversial, don't get me wrong, but I'm a little bit of a man pig. I'm like this. And I like to express myself in whatever way I can, but I'm trying to be respectful, don't get me wrong. But yeah, it's good that it's not cancel culture right now.
The game was notorious enough for being aggressively pro-current thing, but the show takes it to such a ludicrous degree that it actually becomes laughable. The whole 100-pound actress beating up a bunch of accommodating stuntmen routine has been done so many times.
I know what he means there, but it's a little bit unrealistic. I get that, but to be fair, they told in when the fight scene had been, this fight scene, that the guy was holding back. So it's like no, I can't find the words for it, but it's complicated. Somehow it's complicated.
That I'd become kind of numb to it by this point, but then we're treated to the insane sight of Bella Ramsey, who looks like a small child at the best of times, literally overpowering a man who's at least twice her size and many times
a little bit unrealistic.
Her strength. What, are you retarded? Who the fuck do you think is gonna buy something like this? Like, seriously guys, did your fight choreographer not put...
I did a little bit, as I told you. I have explained myself.
Up his hand at some point and say, I don't think this is working. I don't think people are going to believe this. But the girl bossing doesn't end there, dear viewer. Not by a long way.
No.
I can pretty much guarantee that almost every position of command and authority is going to be held by a woman in this show.
Yeah, that's when they just put them there just for it to look good. That's never good. That's never good, no matter if you're man, woman, or something in between. It's not good. You need to be competent, and you need to know what you're doing, and the people on the job. It's like Lord of the Rings versus Rings of Power. I don't need to say more than that.
Every military unit will be at least 50% female, because as we all know, putting women of childbearing
diversity
is definitely a smart move when the human race is teetering on the brink of extinction. And I'm not kidding, there's even a point where a heavily pregnant woman is somehow allowed to go out into hostile territory.
Yeah, and it's a really weird scene, this one. It's a weird, and it's, yeah.
Like she's not going to be a complete liability to herself and everyone around her.
Son of a bitch!
What the fuck is wrong with you? I mean, do you really think that anyone in their right mind believes this nonsense for 1 second? The inconvenient truth is that if The Last of Us actually happened for real, women would never be allowed anywhere near combat or danger in general
For the most part, they wouldn't, because they would, for keeping the human race alive, I guess you need both sexes. And for giving birth to a child, you need a woman. So, everything else that I'm not going to talk about, that I'm sure he's going to talk about.
that matter, because they're too valuable to risk losing.
Yeah.
They wouldn't be allowed out on patrol, they wouldn't serve in military units, and they probably wouldn't be in positions of frontline command either. They would be at home, having babies and keeping things running behind the lines, while the men took all the risks and made most of the big decisions.
Probably. He's probably
Is it
right
glamorous?
there.
No.
He's probably right there. I'm gonna say it straight out. If it were the real apocalypse, it wouldn't happen like it happened in this show, I don't think. But then again, this is show, this is fiction.
Oh, does it fit with modern progressive politics? Also no.
No,
but funnily
no.
enough, all that stuff tends to go out the window once people start dying and all the safeguards and comforts of modern society get stripped away. You really would be amazed how quickly the idea of girl bossing dies out when people have to take actual physical risks and put their lives on the line.
Yeah.
On the other
Yeah, he's great. I like the critical drinker. What is his name? He has good points, and he's like, he doesn't care. You know, he's just going for it and speaks his mind and do a little bit of comedy in it. So I like it.
out when people have to take actual physical risks and put their lives on the line. On the other hand, the male characters around them are usually portrayed as corrupt, bigoted or cowardly at worst, and at best benignly agreeable and progressive, always happy to take insults and disrespect without ever giving anything back, and defer to their betters, because again, that's how guys like Neil...
It's true, it's for the most part true, but then again, I didn't really, what is it, not care, I didn't really see that part of it, but a little, of course, a little bit, because it feels like every man has to answer, they are like laying like a doormat for when a woman steps in, but that's how it is. If you are a married man, that's how it is. You need to be a doormat for your wife. That's just how it is, boys. Nothing, you can't. That's just how it is.
Show that's so desperate to be taken seriously, it's amazing how much The Last of Us relies on cliched tropes that became outdated and laughable half a decade ago. It's a show born from bad source material, adapted into a preachy, self-indulgent mess by a man whose activism was always more important than storytelling, repeating the same mistakes he made with the game but still expecting a different result. The Last of Us Season 2...
Yeah, that's the thing. Like Einstein said, the definition of someone who's crazy is one who does the same thing over and over again and accept a different result. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
really was the most predictable of disasters. They knew what they were heading towards, they had every opportunity to change course and do things better this time, but instead they just ploughed on, too arrogant to listen and too zealous to change.
Yeah.
Well, you really did get what you deserve, and The Last of Us deserved the failure it created for itself. I'm just fucking glad I don't have to watch any more of it for a couple of years.
Maybe.
Anyway, that's all I've got for today.
Yeah, that's great. But I think with this, with the what they're trying to convey and everything, I think they have their group. You know, if we take Hollywood, they have their little bubble. And they think everybody thinks like they do. Like you do on whatever occasion. If you're in a small town, big town, in a other country, wherever. You have your little bubble with your friends and your relatives or whatever. And I think it's the same on a bigger scale, like Hollywood. They think they have the same worldview as we do, you know, normal people or whatever. But the reality is, there are tons of different peoples. There are leftists, there are rightists, there are people in between, there are extremists, whatever. So everybody's gonna have different views. But yeah, that was all for me on this video. If you're on YouTube, thanks for watching and catch you in the next one.